does the alliance get you going? I know Tom said on Twitter, he was like, if there's anything that watching Survivor has taught you, that 41 member alliances never hold up. So what do we think about the alliance? Does it excite you? Is there anything that you think is particularly creative? What do we think comes of this?
I think it is a good way to stand up to SEC ESPN, right? Which is quickly what the SEC is becoming. Now, of course, the ACC has a contract with the ESPN, and all the leagues do to some extent have some games, on the ESPN family of networks. But if you listen to the new Pac-12 commissioner, he's talking about how there's no reason we don't have this playoff bid out to multiple entities. It's how we increase the money that's paid out, and it also kind of helps us retain some control. I think that they're probably really concerned that Greg Sankey was working behind the scenes to create a super conference, while at the same time sitting at the table of the, people who run the conferences that he kind of ended up hurting there in the Big 12. So they want to be able to retain some control. I think it's more about voting power, right? Hey, we're all going to stick together and we're going to vote in this. Could it be for a TV contract thing down the line if they agree to play X number of games against each other? Sure, but I'm just not sure how many of these games are, extremely valuable anyway. Like, yes, I want to see Clemson and Ohio State, right? I want to see USC, Michigan. Do I really want to see like Washington State, Purdue?
Hell yeah.
Right. But, it's not that much more valuable in the traditional sense than just playing your regular conference games would be. Now, maybe if you do some kind of alliance and you play more games on like Thursday nights or something like that, who knows? But I think for the most part, this is just protectionism and voting power. Like, we're in this together. We're not going to just be totally overtaken by the SEC. And they're trying, I think, in some ways to regionalize the SEC.
Yeah, I think this is like you're getting at. There's nothing exciting about this alliance to me. And it's funny because it's like the reports that first surfaced originally is like, hey, Big Ten, Pac-12, and ACC are talking about an alliance, a possible scheduling alliance, a possible this alliance, possible that alliance. And then like the big story is that, hey, that thing that we didn't know anything about a couple of weeks ago, well, now they might be announcing it, although we still don't really know what it's about yet. So I'm not that I'll be interested in the alliance once we know what the alliance's ultimate goal is. But I think like what Bud's talking about is pretty much it. It's just a way to work together. I don't know if there's going to be really any like kind of scheduling deal out of it, because I don't think that there's a ton to gain. I think it's really just a way to delay the playoff expansion and make sure that you get other parties involved, because you don't want the SEC and ESPN running the entire thing, which is what they've basically been doing for the first 5-6 years of the current college football playoff. And you'd like to get it to change. And I think that the only way to do that is to unite together and maybe serve as a voting block of sorts, depending on how that all works and looks at the end with the new NCAA Constitution or whatever the heck's going on there at the Continental Congress, whatever the hell they're doing. So it's a really weird time in this sport where I think everybody's just kind of trying to make sure, like, they were caught off guard by Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC. And now I think everybody's just trying to like, well, we have to look like we're doing something. So while we try to figure out what we're going to do, let's just do this.
I think all you guys hit outstanding points. I do think when we were guessing what was the next move going to be in college football, and with the SEC creating this super league, it's like, all right, ACC, your move. What are you going to do? Notre Dame and West Virginia? Well, it's close, but it doesn't stack up to Oklahoma, Texas. Big Ten, what are you going to do? We're going to go get Kansas and somebody else, maybe Cincinnati from there. It doesn't come close. Pac-12, you're going to go get Oklahoma State, maybe. Like, of all the moves they could do, they couldn't match Oklahoma and Texas. But I do think this is the strength in numbers. All right, if we can't each individually make our own moves, let's all collaborate, come together, and see what we can do. I do think the scheduling thing is intriguing because what was the matchup you gave? Washington State versus who?
Purdue.
Well, see, I would rather watch Washington State Purdue than Washington State versus Portland State. I think if they said some sort of structured layout of we are going to play 10 Power 5 opponents and we're going to, 2 group of 5, no more FCS, and we're going to make this product from day one, from week 1 to week 12, we're going to have competitive games. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to schedule these across, and we're going to try to play them against each other. I do wonder too, if you did that, is there any chance, because the ACC is locked into a bad deal. We're only in 3 years in, and it looks like it's an incredible bargain for ESPN to get access to the ACC product till 2036, and it's cheap, right? It's very cheap, especially considering what's about to unfold, what just did unfold with the SEC. I wonder if there's any power in that to say, all right, we play 8 conference games up to now. Maybe we bump that up, or we're going to replace some of these garbage opponents, the cupcake opponents, with these better games. If we give you better inventory, will you give us a reworked deal or something along those lines? Because I think that's, if you're these other 3, you're ticked off that Sankey made this move, and then you're looking at the money they've got, and you're like, well, how can we compete with that? I would say that part of this alignment would be trying to make yourself look more valuable. And I do think scheduling better competition would make you more valuable. So
there's business and there's culture. And those are 2 things that are ringing in my mind. And Danny, do you think that the ACC is playing maybe a little bit of that poker right now? Because there's also, what if the ACC is like the sleeper cell, right? What if the ACC with its 100% ESPN deal is entering into the alliance and is like, yeah, we'll let you know what's going on. We'll check in over coffee every single Tuesday. I'll give you the heads up of where the alliance's head is at. Or I like your side of it, which is, maybe they are going to use this just as a position of power, just to try to find a little bit of leverage anywhere where it's looking like it's increasingly difficult to come by. The second piece was culture, because if we think about the ACC, if we think about the Big Ten, and if we think about the Pac-12 and the university presidents and the high-minded academic types, yes, Tom, and the pinkies up and everything else, the fine violin being played at the cocktail party, that is them also getting together and positioning themselves against the SEC culturally. And when we think about the future of college sports and the future of college athletics, do you think that player compensation is something that we're on the verge of really having a difficult discussion about? And I don't think it's going to be difficult. I just think it's going to be kind of, bending some fans' minds if we really start to talk about player compensation. I think that there are other football first attitudes, which are very prevalent in the SEC and still prevalent in the SEC that has Texas and Oklahoma, that don't resonate at all of this alliance level, ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12. I got to think, do y'all think there's any value to that? Do you think that some of this has to be choosing your side based on what you want football to be, to quote Nick Saban back in the day?
It goes back to Survivor, Chip. It's like all the athletic people in the game are in an alliance together because they know that all the nerdy, scrappy people are going to be coming after them to get them out because they can't beat them. So no, I culturally, yeah, I think that that's going to be part of it, or at least I think that has often been the case when it comes to the Big Ten and the ACC and the Pac-12 and these schools. It's at least fun to say it. I think that if the true concern of these conferences is, well, we're still, an academic institution, I don't think they really care what the SEC is doing, because they want to make sure that they're still getting money and that the SEC and ESPN aren't taking completely over the sport and going into their own revenue streams for their athletic departments. So I definitely think that culturally at those conferences, maybe there is still some concern for the academics, but I think that is, as has been the case for a long time, that's more of a talking point than the actual reality.
I do think and this is a problem, because I think, we've talked about Sankey's playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers. I think this is more like Battleship, right? They're firing, missiles at each other, and now the alliance is forming up and they're firing missiles back. But I do think this Supreme Court case just opened up everything, and specifically Brett Kavanaugh's comments opened up, and it was 9-0 unanimous. But then Kavanaugh's statement opened up the door to exactly what Chip was talking about paying players, things looking different that would blow college football fans' minds. When you think about NIL is one thing. I personally was in favor of NIL. I think it's a good compromise. You don't have to have them employees. Brett Kavanaugh said NIL is cute, but this is not going to make us happy. This is not the way America works. His statement, I will read it to you. Nowhere else in America can businesses get away with agreeing not to pay their workers a fair market rate. That's the quick synopsis of it. I mean, that is glaringly, you guys are paying your players before long. Sankey, to me, seems like they're willing to embrace that. They have read the tea leaves. They see what's coming, and they're saying, let's go. It feels like the alliance is kind of saying, well, hold on, not so fast. We don't want to go there yet. And that, to me, is the fear, is that maybe we see this separate more, even though the alliance, I don't think, is going to have a choice.
And it's funny because in the ACC, I mean, I'm sorry to take this homer, but the greatest football power is Clemson, and Dabo's been anti-player compensation from the jump. Like, you actually would have, like, it wouldn't be a situation necessarily where Clemson would say, we want to play players, or Dabo Swinney would be leading the charge. Like, we want to pay players. So we're going to go join the SEC. They would almost be down to just continue to dominate the alliance if that's what the future held. But it does feel like, we're still a few steps away, but that's all stuff that I'd been thinking about when it comes to this alliance.